How do I get good at weight loss maintenance?
All right, so in order to properly maintain, you have to properly get there. And so properly getting there means that you have to do your best to maintain your lean body mass while you're losing body fat. So what happens to a lot of people when they diet is they lose a lot of lean body mass along
Lean
with,
body mass. You mean muscle?
yes, muscle mass,
Muscle mass.
along with their fat mass. And so muscle tissue is something very important to keep on the body while you're losing fat, because muscle is, we can look at it as our metabolically active. Every tissue is metabolically active, even body fat. But muscle tissue specifically is the center of our dietary fuel usage. It is the metabolic engine of the body, if you will. And so if you're losing muscle tissue, you're really losing metabolic leverage while you're losing body fat.
So the way that I infer that is that muscle's very greedy.
Yeah.
And it takes up a lot of calories. So if I lose my muscle, when I drop my weight, it's almost like the greedy guy who sucks up all my calories is no longer there. And so I'm quite likely just to rebound quite quickly.
That's a great analogy, and it's accurate too. And in fact, there is a phenomenon that in the literature, it's called collateral fattening. And that happens when the body senses an energy crisis at the end of a diet where you've lost a bunch of muscle mass. The body senses that, oh my gosh, we just lost a bunch of precious tissue. We have to do whatever we can to get it back. And so your hunger signals ramp up, and your body kind of behaviorally and even metabolically does what is necessary for you to feed that back as soon as possible. And this does not necessarily happen, certainly not to that kind of magnitude, if you keep your muscle mass while you're losing body fat. You don't experience this collateral fattening type of phenomenon where people just rebound like crazy because their appetite is out of control at the end of the diet. So the way that you preserve muscle mass during the fat loss process is a couple things. So you have to make sure that your rate of weight loss isn't indicative of something that's too quick. So about 0.5% to 1% of your body weight lost per week is as fast as you really want to go. So roughly 1 pound a week. Some people who start off heavier, okay, 2 pounds a week is fine at the very beginning. But you generally don't want to lose more than 1% of your total body weight per week, because then that increases the chances that you're losing an undue amount of muscle mass along with your fat mass. And so if you can, in essence, control the weight loss rate, then you will keep your lean mass. Now, the other two things that need to be going on at the same time are you need to be resistance training and you need to be consuming enough protein. So
strength training and protein.
Enough protein, you got resistance training, and then you have sort of a top speed limiter on how much weight that you lose per week. And 1% loss a week, 1% loss a week is spectacular, actually, for most people. Even 1 pound a week, even 0.5 pound a week. You're looking at, like, in 2 years, you lost 50 pounds. Most people took like 2 decades to put on that 50 pounds.
So you actually don't want to lose weight too quickly, or else you are susceptible to rebound.
It is going to come off quickly if you have a lot of weight to lose. It'll come off quickly at the beginning. So for example, somebody who is in a state of obesity, let's say they weigh 250 pounds, and let's say they're losing 2.5 pounds a week at the beginning of the program, that's fine. But on average, you would want to look at roughly 1 pound a week is a good benchmark. And I still would not frown upon or scoff at 0.5 pound a week for certain cases. And we can talk about some of those stubborn cases, like on the topic of plateaus, for example. I had a client, I'm sure she doesn't mind being named, she's a great person, Pam Greshok. She's a veteran coach in the space. She's perimenopausal, so she's in her 40s. And she wanted to lose what we calculated out to be 8 pounds of fat. And she stored the majority of it where she didn't want it was around the midsection. And I had it in mind that, okay, this is somebody who's perimenopausal, so there's going to be a lower rate of progress going on. This is somebody who is highly trained, so she doesn't have a lot more muscle to put on that would give her some extra, in quotes, metabolic leverage for the whole process of improving body composition. So she's highly trained, perimenopausal, wants to lose 8 pounds of fat, which would represent the final 8 pounds, sort of that pushing the envelope. Knowing those three things, I knew that this is going to be a difficult and slow going process. So whereas I would normally have somebody expect roughly, or at least gun for, a pound a week loss, for Pam, it was more like, are you going to be okay with 1 to 2 pounds per month? Like, if we can get rid of 1 to 2 pounds of body fat per month, I would be happy with it, and I think you should be happy with it. And so I convinced her of that. And with her wanting to lose 8 pounds, I think it helps to give people a visual of what a certain amount of weight loss looks like. So coincidentally, a gallon jug, if you fill it with butter, that's 8 pounds. And so I had her visualize this 8-pound jug. And I also had her do a butter visualization too. So a standard stick of butter is 4 ounces. So 4 sticks of butter is 1 pound. And in her case, she wanted to lose 8 pounds. So that's 32 sticks of butter that would be removed from her body at the end of the dieting cycle.
Is that what this is here? What is this?
That is 10 pounds of butter. This is an amazing freaking visual. And this is because you asked about diet breaks as a tool for people achieving long-term weight loss or just breaking through plateaus or managing plateaus. So every 5 to 10 pounds that somebody loses in a dieting cycle is high time for a diet break. The way you can define a diet break and put some parameters on it. So it's what I call non-YOLO maintenance. So you take off the rules, take off the restrictions, but you're not eating with sheer abandon. You're just relaxing the diet. You take a week off the diet either every 4 to 8 weeks while you're dieting, or you take a week off of the diet every 5 to 10 pounds that you lose. And the sound of 5 to 10 pounds seems like, oh, that's nothing. But no, it's a milestone.
This is 10 pounds?
Yes.
That's crazy.
10 pounds of butter off the body. So yeah, every time you lose 10 pounds, it's 5 to 10 pounds. In my experience, is high time to take a diet break to just alleviate the mental and the physical fatigue of dieting. And that's one of the tactics that you can use for a long-term adherence to a plan. On the topic of plateaus, you can, when you're dieting, you will hit a point where the plateau periods or the maintenance phases are going to be longer than the dieting phases. I think that that's ideal to be able to hit that point for a long-term weight loss goal. And so it's a lot easier, or at least a lot less intimidating, for somebody to know that they're going to be dieting for 4 to 8 weeks at a time in between let's say, a 2 to 3 month maintenance phase.
What about fasting? Do you think that fasting is, because a lot of people talk about this thing called autophagy, where if you fast for, 48 hours, your body switches into the state of autophagy where it starts to heal and repair itself. Are you a fan of fasting? For weight loss or for autophagy or other things?
For the control of calories in, fasting is legit. And it's also legit for, it actually works as one of the options for dieting. There just has been a massive accumulation of studies showing that it works great. So the intermittent fasting variants, we have one we talked about earlier, time-restricted eating, and we've got every other day fasting, and then the other third major variant would be twice weekly fasting, or the 5-2 type of model. And then you have consecutive day fasting type of models as well, which are less studied because there's just more risk involved in them, and it's tough to incur that risk in research. When you bring up autophagy, that's where I kind of have to push back on not on your mentioning of it specifically, but just in general. People will say, or they'll make claims that autophagy, and we can say that we can explain autophagy as a way that the body gets rid of parts of damaged cells. It's an important process within the body, and it is a catabolic process, or a breakdown process. But the thing is, it happens in a caloric deficit, regardless of whether fasting is involved or not.
Really?
Yes. You maintain hypocaloric conditions, autophagy ramps up. You can have a linear hypocaloric model or a non-linear or intermittent hypocaloric model. And you'll get similar degrees of autophagy if you match the caloric deficit by the end of the week. Now, the other interesting thing about autophagy is that you can ramp up autophagy through exercise. And not only that, but both major types of exercise will increase autophagy. So resistance training increases autophagy. Endurance aerobic type training increases autophagy. So if you want to, in quotes, chase autophagy, then doing it through intermittent fasting or just going through prolonged periods of not eating can be a double-edged sword. Whereas the autophagy increases through exercise, they almost don't have a downside. And so a lot of times with intermittent fasting, it can be a great tool for people who need to lose excess body weight. But what I'm seeing in the community is people thinking that intermittent fasting is something that is necessary to do regardless of your body fat level, that it's either necessary or beneficial. And that's not actually true per the research. There's one study in particular that looked at men who were already lean. And I believe this was by Templeton and colleagues, where they compared a linear dieting model with an every other day fasting model.
What does that mean, every other day fasting? So they took 24 hours off?
Yes. Yeah. So it was, every other day, and then the same deficit by the end of the week between the two groups. And the intermittent group actually lost more lean body mass than the linear caloric deficit group.
They lost more lean body
They
mass?
lost more lean body mass.
So they lost more weight? Or
They
more muscle?
lost more muscle. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that gives us a hint that fasting is great until it isn't, because you've achieved what you needed to achieve. And so then it just kind of becomes a tool. It's always just a tool to help people control calories in. One of the beautiful things about fasting, and whether it's time-restricted eating or whether it's some sort of variant of alternate day fasting or twice a week fasting, is that it works in research regardless of whether people are meticulously tracking things or not. And so that can be a boon for individuals who don't necessarily like to micromanage their stuff. But for people who are trying to maximize retention of lean mass while they're pushing the envelope of fitness, it can definitely be a double-edged sword once you're already lean.
But if I do want to maximize the benefits of autophagy, the best way to do that is fasting versus just calorie restriction, I'm assuming.
We don't know what the optimal level of autophagy is that would actually confer health benefits. We don't know what that threshold is. And there's different ways that people try to measure autophagy. It's very hard to correlate certain levels of autophagy with certain certain degrees of disease prevention. We're not there yet. I don't think, I think big picture wise, I think that autophagy is an algorithm running in the background that is more of a bystander type of thing than a driver, similar to insulin and glucagon. So the insulin and glucagon axis works when you feed versus when you're fasting. So glucagon levels go up.
What's glucagon?
Glucagon is a hormone that mobilizes fuel stores in the absence of food, in the absence of calories. And autophagy is similar in that regard. And I think that a focus on pushing autophagy is sort of missing the forest for the trees. Because if we were to push autophagy to its end, then we could go all the way to a phenomenon called autosis, which is runaway cell death, which happens in starvation in some cases. And so I think that we need to focus on other things like how do we maintain a certain body fat percentage while maintaining a certain physical activity level while maintaining a certain dietary pattern. I think that it's those things that are much more productive to target than seeing how far can we push autophagy before potentially going into runaway cell death.
Mm-hmm. I was looking at the benefits of this thing they call autophagy, and it says the proven likely benefits are cellular cleaner, so it repairs damaged proteins and organelles, I believe, improving cell efficiency. Metabolic health improves insulin sensitivity. Neuroprotection, heart and muscle quality, maintains mitochondria, helps adapt to training and oxidative stress. Immune tuning and longevity. There's sort of strong animal evidence, I believe, around the longevity component, but the research that I was reading talked about how it can backfire because tumors may use autophagy to survive. And some treatments for established cancers aim to inhibit it. And if you overdo fasting, as you said in the study you cited, you can lose muscle, which is not great, and be fatigued, etc. There is a bit of a trend, I think, with people doing a lot of water fasts and stuff like that quite periodically. I think it's rising, even sort of juice fasts and stuff like that. What's your take on those types of fasts?
I'm not a big fan, Stephen. I think that the cycle that people go through, at least in the developed world, is that they go through the year, then November comes around, and then the holidays hit. They overdo it from November through December, all the way up to the end of the year, and they're like, oh boy, I have 10 to 20 pounds that I want to lose. And then they just use these sort of fasts and these detoxes to crash off the bad decisions of the previous few months. And then the cycle repeats annually. So I think that it's a much healthier approach for people to secure and reinforce the right habits through the entirety of the year, instead of jumping on the fast to get rid of the holiday binges.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.